Do that. And now I need to share the screen. Here we go. So this, by the way, is taken from Hebrew Books. Hebrew Books has all sorts of things that are, because we're more widely disseminating this, I wanted to be sure that there's no issues here. So it's HebrewBooks.org. You can get a copy of this is of the Shulchan Aruch Mishnah Berurah. Anyways, so here, let me turn to the right page. Hold on. By the way, see here is his Hakdama to Hilchot Shabbos. You see, he writes a Hakdama before you even can get into to learning it. Okay. All right, here is the Mafteach. This is all the topics in Hilchot Shabbos, and here we go. Let me get my handy dandy arrow, and let's make this bigger. Okay. One second. I was also expanding the window. All right, so here we go. The first siman is Lizoher Bekavod Shabbos. To be careful about the honor of Shabbos, and there's just one sif here in this topic. So the Mechaber here writes, Afilu mishet tzarich la'acherim. Im yesh lo ma'at mishelo tzarich lizarez atzmo lechabed es haShabbos. So even if a person possesses they need other people to sustain themselves, meaning they need the help of tzedakah from others to pay the bills, to make life function in a normal way. If you do have, though, a little bit of your own money, so it's important to lizarez atzmo. I'm trying to think of the right word for lizarez. It's like to really like to be fervent in, and to be very I'll say stringent, but to be really excite yourself to honor the Shabbos. Take the money, give a little bit of money, extra money. Not that you're not going to be able to pay the electric bills, not that you're not going to be able to pay for the basics of life, but you have a little bit of extra. So do something with that little bit. Take a little bit of extra money and do something to honor Shabbos. V'lo amru, and what are you not supposed to say? Aseh Shabbascha chol ve'al titzarech labriot. You're not supposed to say make Shabbos like a weekday, and that way you won't need to rely on other people, which is a statement. Anybody know where that's from? This is a Mishnah, I believe, in Pirkei Avot. I believe it's in Pirkei Avot. I think also, I guess, it appears in Psachim as well, which is you shouldn't make. This is Rabbi Akiva's statement that you shouldn't make. That you should rather make Shabbos like a weekday, if that means that you don't need to rely on other people. Meaning, don't start taking other people's money if just so you can have a little bit of that way Shabbos is a little fancier. It's okay. Just make Shabbos like a weekday in terms of how you honor it, rather than needing tzedakah from others. But here the Shulchan Aruch is saying, don't say that. Who's only supposed to say that? Ela lemish hasha dechukalo beyoter al kain sarich letzamsem b'shar yamim kedei lechabed Shabbat. So what is he saying here? The only person who should be saying this statement of Rabbi Akiva, that you should make Shabbat like the weekdays, is a person for whom the moment is really a difficult time. They're like really destitute. They're really poor. That they're struggling on many fronts to just put food on the table during the week. So if you spend any extra money, they're like on a tight budget. They can afford 14 meals a week. I think that's the example that's given in the, I don't know if it's in the Gemara, it's in the Rishonim. You can afford like 2 meals for each day. If you start spending a little bit extra for Shabbos, suddenly you're not going to be eating one of those meals during the week. And yet you're also not taking tzedakah from other people because you're just scraping by. So that person who, if they start to push their funds towards Shabbos, they're going to have to rely on other people. We tell them it's fine. Just have a regular peanut butter sandwich or whatever it is on Shabbos, and it's good to go. All right. And that's why it's Sarich L'Tzamtzem B'Shayam. So that's why, summing this up, if there is a way or on other days, I can be Mitzamtzem, again, not to the detriment of your health, but you don't need to have a 4-course meal on a Wednesday night. So that's a preferred option. Don't be Mitzamtzem. Lessen the amount you're eating on other days in order that you can honor Shabbos. If you're going to have one meal of the week that's going to be a 2-course meal because you're struggling to put food on the table, but one meal of a week you like to have a nice whatever, let it be Friday night, basically. Okay, now again, this is really pointing us in the direction of the importance of preparing for Shabbos from the beginning of the week. That what we do on Sunday, what we do on Monday, that should be with the thought of, does this affect Shabbos? Now, I'm going to go on a limb here and say, for most of us, we're not maybe thinking this way, which is great. We don't have to deal with the problem of, that I have to think about what am I going to eat on, what should I not eat on Monday? What funds should I not use on Monday so that I can have them for Shabbos? But I think it gives us a perspective that the week is really centered around Shabbos. That's really what this is all about. Okay, so we have some others have joined us here. Hi Ken, how you doing? Good to see you. Good morning. And I see John joined us. Hi John. Okay.
Hi Rob.
Okay. Good morning. So let's just finish one more line here in the Shulchan Aruch, and then we'll look at the Mishnah Berurah's comments here. The Shulchan Aruch, he concludes his comments and says, and we're right over here where my arrow is pointing on the screen. Mitakanat Ezra, from a decree that was made by Ezra. Ezra was Ezra the Sofer, Ezra the scribe. He lives at a time as the second temple is being rebuilt, and some of the Jewish community that had been exiled to Babylonia, some of them are returning. They are very slow to return. They are not sure whether it's a good idea to return. And Ezra is definitely one of the people who is trying to restart a vibrant Jewish life in Jerusalem as they usher in a second temple era. So one of the decrees Ezra was trying to make at a time when people were not necessarily as observant in mitzvot, he had to make certain decrees to try to strengthen the observance of Jewish law. One other takana, just to give you some context, that Ezra made was the idea of reading Torah on Monday and Thursday. He had a takana to read on Shabbat afternoon that we should read the Torah at Mincha on Shabbos. There are others as well. I don't know if it was actually his idea to do Monday and Thursday. It might have been to establish those days, but you're not supposed to go 3 days without Torah. There are other decrees that Ezra made to try to strengthen the Jewish community because their knowledge and observance of mitzvah was quite low. So one of the takanot that he made, one such decree that we read about, is Shayu mechamsim begadim bechamishi b'Shabbat b'pnei Kavod Shabbat. He said you should launder your clothing on the Thursday in order for the honor of Shabbat. Now the question is, what does that mean? You could take that two ways. Either it means don't launder your clothing on Friday, because Friday, like today, by the way, is tomorrow is like a short day. And it's not so easy to get your laundry done in addition to all the other preparations for Shabbat. That could be one way to take this. But I think probably the other interpretation, the better interpretation is, and I think the more inspiring interpretation is, that think about how much clothing they have. We have to put ourselves in the mindset of a person living in the times of the Talmud, and not that long ago either. They didn't have all the materials, the stuff that we have, lack of a better word. We have so much stuff. The Gemara said that it was much better to be a buyer than to be a seller, because the seller is sad that they have to part with their item, and the buyer now gets the item. What does that even mean? It's early in Masechet Bracha that the Gemara makes this statement. What does that even mean? And what it means is that in the times of Chazal, to have something, a garment of clothing, a bottle, something was valuable, and you felt sad when you had to be able to sell it off because you needed the money. Today, I would say that how many of us want to sell the things in our house because it's too much clutter and we want to get rid of it? It's just like, I can't deal with it. But it's a different reality we live in. We have so much, things are mass produced now. And so a lot of us have collected stuff. But for them, clothing, how many garments of clothing do they have? Not as many as, I assure you that if you opened their closet and you opened our closet, ours would be 200 times more packed than theirs were. So for them, laundering clothing was, hey, this is going to mean that I'm going to have clothing that's clean, because they probably wore things. They didn't just wear it once and wash it, I would assume, unless it got so soiled. So what Ezra was trying to tell them was, walk into Shabbos with super clean clothing. That's what you should do. And you have to do it on a Thursday, right? If you do it on Friday, first of all, they didn't have a dryer either. Right? So they had to hang dry everything. So it needs to be ready for Shabbos. You have to do it on a Thursday. You have to actually think about and prepare on a Thursday. And what am I going to wear on Shabbos? What shirt am I going to wear? What cloak am I going to wear? And you prepared it and you got it clean. And you had to do it on Thursday so that it was ready to go for Shabbos. So I'll pause right there. First of all, feel free, anybody, just jump in, questions or comments. Oh, I see somebody actually wrote something in the chat box. Hold on, let me see. Hinda wrote, those of us who have to watch our caloric intake save our extras for Shabbos. Yes. Sorry, I didn't see that comment until now. Yes, there's an extra reason to be mitzamtzem on the weekdays. Yes. Good. So let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah's comments. Again, the Mishnah Berurah, for those of you who are joining us first time, Mishnah Berurah was written by the Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim, he passed away in 1933 at the age of 95. He was undoubtedly one of the, if not the, most. His work is undoubtedly the leading work in practical everyday halacha. It's not necessarily the bottom line always, but his work is studied by so many that it has become a very accepted work of halacha. One of the other works that we'll make mention of from time to time is the Orach HaShulchan, right over here, written by Rav Yechiel Michal Epstein, who sometimes presents what is more the minhag of Klal Yisrael, as opposed to the Chafetz Chaim, who lived a little bit more in the world of the yeshiva. So he was a little more focused on the Daled Amot, the 4 cubits of the yeshiva, as opposed to what was going on the ground. Orach HaShulchan was a shul rabbi. He understood what was going on with his Bal Habatim, with his congregants. He understood the challenges of life of the average person, and how sometimes that the interplay of that and halacha. He was often the defender of communal practice, whereas the Mishnah Berurah was not always necessarily. Ken wrote, life plus death for him equals 120 years. Life plus death for him equals 120 years. Explain that, Ken. You have to unmute your mic there.
He died at the age of 95, 25 years ago, and his works live on. So you have, between his life and his death, 120 years. And we always wish each other to live to 120. And yet with his works being passed on from generation to generation, that 120 years is actually realized.
Correct. Yes, that's true. I mean, his work is everlasting. That's undoubtedly correct. Yes, Ken. And there's a select group of rabbinic scholars through the generations that could be said about, where their work has really continued to be a source of inspiration and of information for the Jewish community. Yes. Okay. Very good. Excellent. All right, let's look at the Mishnah Berurah here. Let me zoom in and make it nice and big for everybody. Aleph. This is going on the comments of Afilu Misha Tzarech Lechem right at the beginning. Now, the Mishnah Berurah goes, it's a lengthy comment. He wants to kind of a little bit of an introduction to this topic of what is the mitzvah here of Oneg Shabbat. Oneg Shabbat means to delight in the Shabbat. There's a mitzvah to delight in the Shabbat. And that may be something that requires preparation in order to have your Shabbat be a delightful Shabbat. So take a look here. Hine, Ikar mitzvat Oneg Shabbat nit paresh lanu al yedei hanavim. The essential mitzvah of delighting in Shabbat was really explained to us through the prophets. Ukamoshen Emar, as it says, and this is from the pasuk from Isaiah, the karata la Shabbat Oneg. Isaiah said, you shall call the Shabbat a delight. That's what the day should be for all of us. It should be a delight. V'yesh poskim, and there are those who are amongst those decisors who explain Torah. The essence of delighting and enjoying the Shabbos is really a Torah concept. It's not even necessarily even from the prophets. How do we know this? Shabbat hu bichlal mikroi kodesh. Because Shabbat is considered one of the holy times in the Torah. In Parshat Emor, it talks about Eila, what is it? Moshe Moadei Hashem al Bnei Yisrael. Eila Moadei Hashem Asher Tikro Otam Moadam. These are the appointed times of, holy times that God has basically set aside, and one of those is Shabbos. And it says also in the Torah, Uvayom HaShvi Shabbat Shabbaton Mikra Kodesh V'chulei, that the seventh day shall be a complete rest, and it should be called holy, etc., etc. Umikra Kodesh, this phrase Mikra Kodesh, a happening or a calling of holiness. Pirshu Chazal b'Sifra, our sages explain in the Midrash Halacha, a work called the Sifra. Dahainu likodsho ulachabdo b'chsut nikiya ulongo be'oneg achila ushtia. What does it mean that the day should be called holy? So the sages explain that means to honor it with nice clothing and to delight in it in eating and drinking. But that's actually part and parcel of how we enjoy the Shabbos experience, how we actually observe the mitzvah of Shabbos, of Oneg Shabbos and Kavod Shabbos, is by wearing nice clothing, eating and drinking delightful foods. And this is an important part, I think, of all of our lives. I think we all understand and appreciate what Shabbos is to all, given the stresses of the week. V'hifligu Chazal me'od b'mitzvah zo v'amru. There are some arguments between some of the sages in Masechah Shabbos about this mitzvah. The chol hama'aneg, some say the chol hama'aneg es Shabbos nos lo nachla b'li mitzarim v'nitzol v'shivut malchios. Some say that if you delight in the Shabbos, you take it seriously, so then you give an inheritance without any kind of boundaries. You'll be the type of inheritance you get there's no ends. There's so much good that's going to come out of it if you delight in the Shabbos, and it will save you from being in servitude to the kingdoms that are out there, that the Jewish people are living in other places in the world, not necessarily in charge of the government and for charge of their own destiny in that sense. But if you delight in Shabbos, it saves you from Shibud Malchuyot. V'zocha avur zeh la'ashirut, and you will merit wealth in this if you delight in the Shabbos. V'ayin sham od kama me'amarim be'inyan zeh. There are other things that you get this, you get that. But rabbis argue about what are the benefits. I just want to try to explain for a moment what is it that is meant by this statement in Chazal. Often when you find a statement like this, please don't take it. This is my approach. There will be many who disagree with me. Don't take it hyper literally. Just because you delight in Shabbos doesn't mean that life is suddenly going to be perfect. What I think Chazal here are trying to teach us is that if we take Shabbos seriously and the delight of Shabbos seriously, which means to eat and to drink and to be together with our family and with our friends, and we dress up nicely and we and we really make it a special day where we really take a break from the stresses of life to the extent that we can. It's easier said than done. What it means is that you'll inherit so much good without boundary. You're setting yourself up to be able to have a good balance in life, right? You might live under an oppressive regime, but if you have the ability to separate from that on Shabbos and say, you know what, this day I'm gonna try to really be present in the moment right now. You won't feel like you're under the oppression of someone else. So you have some control of your life, and it's not just run under somebody else's watch. And what does it mean? You'll become wealthy suddenly? I think this really reflects the teaching in Pirkei Avot. Ezehu Ashir, who's wealthy, who's the person who's happy with what they have. That I enjoy my Shabbat. I enjoy the moment. People who tend to enjoy the moment feel rich, even if on the bank statements they're not quite as rich as those who have bigger bank statements. And I think that's the idea here behind Shabbos. That if we really delight in Shabbos, it should hopefully transform our experience and make us spiritually and I think mentally healthier people for enjoying that moment. Okay. And again, feel free, jump in, comments, ideas, anytime are welcome. All right, we have 5 more minutes here before I have to jump on and teach a Gemara class at Ramaz. V'hinei begeder mitzvazo. The Mishnah Berurah continues and says, how do we, what are the boundaries of, or what are the limits of this mitzvah? How do we understand how to define this mitzvah? He says, Yesh gimel ma'amare chazal bazeh. There are 3 statements of chazal which help us understand the mitzvah of delighting in Shabbat. Number 1, had amaro tzarech le'ongo b'dagim gedolim b'roshei shuman b'tavshil shel trodim shezeh hayamachal chashuv bizmanehem v'chein b'chol makom umakom. Statement number 1 that Chazal say is that you need to delight. How do you delight? How do you experience delight? With big fish. And Veroshe Shuman, and like I think it means like heads of cloves of garlic. I assume that's what it means. And Tafshil Shel Trodin is some sort of I think Trodin are actually turnips or beets. What is it? Sorry, what was it?
Kavod is spinach.
In modern, I think in Tafshil Shel Trodim, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be some sort of beet. Might be something like a little bit like borscht here. I don't know. Something with beets. I'm going to double check in a moment the Jastrow dictionary. But that's the Tafshil Shel Trodim. Shezeh haya ma'achal chashuv bizmaneim, because in those days, in the days of Chazal, having a nice piece of fish with garlic and some sort of beet stew, that was special food for them. And he says, you all need to figure out for yourselves. In every generation, we have to figure out what's the drink and what is the food that is special. And that may differ even within the same time period based upon where you live. And ulefi minastam rov bnei adam ikar anugam bebasar v'yayin umidganot. Most people, not all, majority of people, they find delight in meat and wine and in sweets. Sounds a little like maybe some of our Shabbos experiences. Lekach ita v'sim. That's why I'll say later on in Siman Reish Nun that you should be increasing the amount of meat and wine and sweets to the amount that's possible. But I want to point out here, there may be those of you who actually find fish to be a much more enjoyable, like in the days of Chazal. Fish is, I enjoy a nice piece of fish more than I enjoy a nice piece of meat. I enjoy a nice, if you name the dairy dish that is, extremely tasty, you enjoy it, it's special, you don't have it every day, then that's okay. I understand there's this pressure of having meat on Shabbos, and if that's what's a special thing, go for it. I most of the time have meat. Sometimes, by the way, we have fish here. on Friday night, because fish is also delicious, and you figure out for yourself what is an oneg for you, what is a delight for you. You don't need to feel constrained by basar v'yayin, by meat and wine. You can find other things to drink and other foods to eat that are that could be your main dishes at your Shabbos meal. Cheese blintzes, yeah, Ken, I agree. Fish is more expensive than meat in these days. That's true, Hinda. Right? You go to the store now, and the fish is adding up. Yes, so maybe that means it's a special dish. So that way we should have fish.
I eat fish every Friday night. That's my big splurge to
Right.
have, one of these $25 a pound pieces of fish.
Yeah, and look, and if that's your oneg Shabbos, that's how you really enjoy that. That's what you should do. And I think that's the point here. Fish is meat without feet. That's correct. So it's in the same category a little bit. There actually is a halachic precedent to what Ken just said, by the way. Number two. What's number two? There are three things that help us define this mitzvah. Number two, Hada Amaro Afil Dabar Muat Sha'asar Lechavod Shabbos Kayem Mitzvahs Oneg Shabbos. Even if I do something small, let's say I don't have the biggest budget, but I do something small. I find a way to make Friday night, and Shabbos lunch, something a little more special than a Wednesday night dinner, right? Vafilu kasa da harsana. Even if it's kasa da harsana is fish hash, okay? It's a small fish. He actually defines it here as dagim ketanim mituganim b'shamnon. Small fish that are fried in their own, in their own fats. So it's small, it's nothing big, it's a little whatever something. And you know what? If you do a little something with whatever you can do, with your financial, whatever your situation is, that's considered oneg Shabbos. You made today a little bit different. And that's the point of how we're supposed to make Shabbos. Hada Amar, now we're up to number three, but I'm going to pause here. It's 8:31. I also want to keep to our time. I also have to go teach a class now on my other computer. So we'll see here. We'll finish up this this definition of oneg Shabbat that the Mishnah Berurah is giving us, and then we'll go on to talk a little about the laundry piece that I brought up today, and we'll talk about next time. Very interestingly, the Ramah talks about the idea of baking challah. There's a special mitzvah to bake challah before Shabbos, not just to go to the store and buy the challah. If you can bake it, that's even better. Make it yourself. And we'll also talk about the minhag of eating pashtida. Today, pashtida, if you in modern Hebrew, it's not, I think, exactly what the definition Chazal were. They were thinking about think about a pita bread with like a pocket inside of it, and you would have filled it with either meat or fish or cheese. And this was something that was apparently often eaten on Friday night in Ashkenazi lands. The minhag then fell away, though it seems that once you get to a later towards the time of the Mishnah Berurah, apparently some had resurrected this minhag of eating the pashtida on Friday night because it was a reminder of the mun in the desert. So we'll talk a little bit about that. This is a much more, I would say, philosophical siman towards Hilchot Shabbos than, let's say, nuts and bolts of Hilchot Shabbos, but nonetheless important for our experience of Shabbos.